This is for those of you who think you cannot let go of a partner or relationship until you have another one lined up, preferably a better one, or that if you let go of someone before you have a new someone and then your ex finds someone before you do, well, you'll just be depressed at home from there. Wait, did you get all that? I'm air quoting this, depressed at home, because this is precisely the comment somebody put on my TEDx talk. And before I read you the whole quote and give you my response, some background for those of you who may be new to me. I gave a viral TEDx talk called The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go, in which I talk about how I let go of a long-term relationship with a wonderful man who just didn't want the marriage I did, and how once I finally let go, I went on to find love and marriage with the right man for me about a year and a half later. Now, let me just say that I read all of the comments on my talk, and so many of them stand out to me, but this one in particular really stood out. And I don't know if it was just the way that it was written, but it does kind of reflect a lot of other similar comments that I see under my talk. So I feel like it's time for me to address it. Now, this person wrote, imagine if in leaving her partner, she would have not found another partner, if her fear would have come true, if her ex would have married a size 6 woman, which I jokingly mentioned in my talk. She wouldn't be here to give this speech. She would be depressed at home. Even though it sounds amazing, I would like to see someone who got over it even after not getting her happy ending, because not everyone will. Signed, Buzzkill. Now, that's not their real name, but I'm going to use it here. Okay, so not to pick on poor Buzzkill, because actually it's a legit question. And in fact, it accurately reflects what I think most of us feel when we're faced with the choice to hold on or let go of something or someone of value. Now, often we choose to hold on because we're afraid that our fears, like mine, will come true. That we'll leave our partners, even though they're not right for us and we're not happy, and then they'll go on to find someone else, leaving us depressed at home, sleeping alone night after night, wrapped in a blanket of regret, telling ourselves that maybe we should have stayed, that settling for less than we wanted or deserved would have been way better than shivering alone in the dark. But would it really be this way? Let me offer you a different scenario, one that more accurately reflects the reality that I faced and what so many people who write to me after seeing my talk and who I interviewed for my book say that they feel after letting go of my 12-year relationship with a wonderful man I deeply loved. That scenario was me living single on my own terms, feeling hopeful again about the future because I was no longer at home depressed about feeling trapped in my dead-end relationship. See, I was free to dream and to imagine and to recreate a life on my terms and to make new choices, to decide what came next without feeling weighed down by old choices that no longer fit, because by then I'd already done my grieving. When I had an epiphany that I talk about in my talk and my book, and was the proverbial last straw that told me in no uncertain terms there was no hope for me and my ex. That's when I was home depressed. Using that time to do the deep work of untethering myself from another person that I loved, and first mentally and then emotionally and then lastly physically. And yes, it was a sad period for sure. And it took me a year to do it, to not only prepare myself to walk away for good, but to set the stage for what came next. During that year, I allowed myself to be sad and depressed at home that it hadn't worked out as I hoped, to consider what life would be like without this person who'd been my home for so long, and to mourn the opportunity cost I'd paid for overstaying my welcome in the relationship, and to forgive myself. It took me a year to understand why I chose him and why I stayed and what I wanted from life and who I wanted to be going forward, so I could fully detach, so that when I did move on, leave, start a new life, there was nothing he or anybody else could do that would have me at home depressed. I made my inner peace and I was ready to separate, and for me to go one way and him to go the other, wishing us both the absolute best. And that's when I started to feel the complete opposite of sadness or depression, even though I was alone. In fact, it was being alone that brought me joy, because by then I was tired of being sad, of being with someone who always said no, who was a wonderful human, but was never going to want what I did from life and love. I was ready to find all the yeses in my life: a new city, a new job, a new home, and maybe new love at some point. But that it had to be the kind that would rise up to meet me where I was, instead of asking me to shrink down to meet it. Now, if at that point my ex had gone on and met someone before I did, sure, of course, I might have felt something about it. I don't have a motherboard in the back of my head. I am human. I do have feelings. And I might have felt sad for what was lost, and melancholy in the sense that I thought things would have turned out otherwise. I might even have wondered what she had that I didn't, or asked the universe in my darker moments, when is it my turn? But I would not have spent a lot of time there. None of that would have kept me at home depressed. None of it. No way. If I'd met the man who would be my husband or not, I promised myself I would have still been happy going out and enjoying life, as not only that promise that I made to myself when I left my ex, but because I knew deep in my heart of hearts, I deserved that. I knew that there were a lot of ways to be happy in life, and I was absolutely going to choose them, whether they included a new man or not. And that, barring the limitations of space, time, and biology, if I really, really wanted love again, I'd find it. This time with the right person who wanted what I did and who was the right fit for me. The thing is, I'd learned by then that happiness does not come from anything outside of us. Another person's journey, an ex moving on before we do, should not have the power to take us down or lift us up. Only we get to do that with our empowering thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And when we embody that sentiment, everything in our life shifts, and we start to move through the world with joy and curiosity instead of desperation and bitterness. And that's when we begin to draw the people and experiences we want to us, including love. But if that hadn't happened for me, if I hadn't gone on for years without finding anyone else, or maybe never, I would have still given that talk, given that talk. Maybe some of the words would have changed, but the spirit would have been exactly the same, because that talk, buzzkill, was never about the journey to finding love with someone else. Oh, you missed the point, friend. It was and remains about my finding the love story I really wanted, the one that I wanted and needed with myself. And lastly, I want to address Buzzkill's parting thoughts. Even though it sounds amazing, I would like to see someone who got over it, even after not getting her happy ending, because not everyone will. I'm here to tell you that if any of this resonates with you, if you think you won't be happy letting go of one thing until you have another, or you will be crushed if that thing finds happiness before you do, it's just not true. Your happy ending is there when you're ready to choose it. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to feel bad if you leave your ex and they move on. You don't have to wait for someone to choose you. You're in charge. Find a love story you want with yourself first. That's the only happy ending really that matters, and everything else will follow.